Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Andy Gibb. Now, Andy Gibb had died of, I believe it's called myocarditis. There's inflammation of the heart muscles attributed to prolonged use of persistent use of cocaine. That's what it stated on Wikipedia.org anyway. I mean, it stated it was connected with the heart, the myocarditis. And the thing about it is, looking at him now, some of you may have heard of Andy Gibb, others may not have. He was a renowned singer. He really his career took off very quickly. He was, of course, a brother of the Bee Gees, of Robin Gibb and of the other Bee Gee members. He was like a sensation like right off the bat, and of course his career went on a terrible, sad decline shortly after it had ascended to such a great point. He succumbed to drug abuse and some depression as well, I believe. And I want to talk about some things in this chart, natally and through transits, that may have been connected with this. Now, Andy Gibb, his chart is a little bit unusual. He has Aquarius ascendant, 29 degrees, and you have 29 degrees on the ascendant. A lot of times this could indicate some physical issues. It could be ones, Aquarius could be very erratic and sporadic and sometimes of an unusual nature. It makes me wonder if he might have had some problems with circulation or something with the ankles or shins, something else that could be Aquarius related. Again, he had Aquarius rising at 29th degree. The ascendant, of course, is connected with the physical body. He also had the sun in Pisces, in that in his first house, intercepted. Of course, Pisces, sun in Pisces, some physical issues can be at times attributed to something drug related. And in being intercepted, of course, it could cause a lot more tension and more exasperation in his chart as well. What I noticed is he also had, and when I look at his eighth house, what's intriguing about that, okay, he has Scorpio on the cusp of the eighth house at 0 degrees. And when you look at 0 degrees in astrology, a lot of times, in fixed, I would say, it's really could be about permanency and persistence. And sadly, I wonder if this played a role on some fixated obsessive energy that was tied into his death, and something that was very powerful and controlling, and in this case drug use. In his chart in the eighth house, he also has Jupiter conjunct Neptune, which could indicate a death that might have been connected with some kind of enlarged drug use or exacerbated drug use. Because remember, as I've stated in previous videos, Jupiter could be rather paradoxical, it could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have the proclivity or tendency to enlarge and expand. In being in Scorpio, of course, it could be something more very powerful and something very controlling, and something that he was very maybe fixated and obsessed with. Scorpio, of course, can be relentless energy as well. The North Node is in that mix. And the North Node, sadly, in this case, could have been tied to that future and destiny. The thing is, you look as well, one of the rulers of his 8th house is conjunct the 12th house. He died in a hospital. Mars, one of the rulers is Mars in Capricorn. Mars can be about inflammation. This was about inflammation of the heart muscle. And I believe he was also going through his Mars return, so that may not have helped matters either. At the time that this happened as well, he also had transit North Node in Pisces, was in his first house of the physical body. So sadly, when you're talking about the transit North Node in astrology, it can often be about issues one may have to confront or address. And given it was in the transit North Node, Pisces was in the first house, it could be over a physical issue that could be Pisces related. In this case, something connected with drug use. And also Pisces energy could be very dissipating, dissolving. It can be about the dissolving dissipation of the vitality, given it was in, you're talking about the first house, not far from his sun in Pisces. At the time this happened, transit sun in Pisces was not far from his natal sun. I mean, transits to the sun can sometimes bring about some kind of, I'd say, like inflammation. The sun also rules the heart. And he had the, being the sun in Pisces in the first house, just even natally, it's not surprising or shocking that he was going to have health-related issues that would be tied in with the heart, as well as that would be attributed to some kind of drug use. Andy Gibb also, in his natal chart, he has Uranus in Leo in the 6th house. Could indicate an unusual heart-related illness, or something that might come very in an unanticipated, unexpected manner. Could also indicate he may have had, his health situation may have been somewhat erratic and sporadic as well. And again, I do wonder if he had some issues with nerves as well, because given that Uranus in the 6th house in his natal chart, coupled with having Aquarius ascendant at 29 degrees. Now, the thing about his chart too is, sadly, when you look at this, I mean, he also had a transit at the time, transit Black Moon Lilith in Leo in the 6th house of health, making, you could call it, a very long opposition to his natal ascendant. So it's in Black Moon Lilith in astrology can often be about suffering and tribulation, and he had it that transit in the 6th house. And of course, Leo, again, something heart related. Now, also in his chart, he has Pluto conjunct the moon in Virgo. So it's not surprising this was his death was going to be something public. Virgo is the sign associated with health. Also, he had the ruler, one of the ruler of his 10th house, which is Sagittarius, falls in his 8th house, so it's not surprising that he actually, this was a death where he got more notoriety and exposure for. So sadly, I mean, you look at the chart, I mean, with Andy Gibb and in his death, I mean, it really was a very, I mean, of course, very devastating, but it was one that had a very tragic and sad ending. Having Capricorn on the cusp of the 12th house is an indicator that this, that an ending that he'd be involved in, I mean, endings that could have a lot of despondency, a lot of sorrow and sadness and dejection. Now, another thing too is that, I mean, keep in mind, I mean, the 12th house can be associated, with drugs and alcohol. The 12th house in astrology corresponds with the zodiac sign Pisces. He had the ruler of his 12th house in the 10th house. So it's not surprising that there was something that would be, I mean, that this drug use was going to go out publicly and perhaps affect his public image and reputation very strongly. And the thing too is, you look as well, he also had transit Chiron in Gemini in his 4th house, and at the time of his death. And the 4th house, of course, can be connected with the end, that latter part of life, and the end of one's life, that end period of one's life. And I mean, Gemini energy, I mean, can be very youthful energy. He died at a very relatively young age. And keep in mind that the 4th house in astrology corresponds with the zodiac sign Cancer, and can be connected with the chest. Now, he did, I believe, experience some pain in his chest at the time that he passed away. Also, too, the ruler of his 4th house, which is Mercury, is conjunct his sun in Pisces in the 1st house. So it's not surprising, too, that the end of that latter or end part of his life was going to be in the spotlight. and again, something drug related. And I think with Pisces too, it makes me wonder if the death might, I mean, this end of life might have been, had some mystery, or was a little bit confounding or nebulous or unclear to some people, because there seemed to be a little bit, maybe there was some debate with some people whether he overdosed at the time his death, or this was actually myocarditis. I don't know if I'm saying it 100% right. You might want to look that up. Due to the enlarged heart muscle from just the general protracted period of persistent drug use. So it shows, I mean, Pisces energy, of course, in general can be very unclear. And the fact is, I mean, Andy Gibb had Pisces intercepted in his first house. Now, another thing, sadly, I noticed too at the time when Andy Gibb, when he passed away, it was like transit Venus, I believe, in Taurus was making a tight conjunction to his natal south node. And when you're talking about south node energy and it's involved in transits, it can often be about energy we're going away from. Now, having the south node in Taurus natally in your second house, sometimes this could be perhaps over persistent, so to speak, in terms of trying to make money, accumulate possessions. I don't think Andy Gibb, I don't think he necessarily was greedy or avaricious, but there might have been maybe a stronger focus on money than maybe he needed, being in South Node in Taurus in the second house. And then you're talking about as well, you're talking about transit Venus moving away from that. And sadly, maybe this was an indicator that money, at the time he died, sadly, was moving away, that this was not going to be happening anymore, sadly, that the money was passing him, that he was not, obviously, if you're deceased, money is not going to be any issue at all anymore for anyone. So the reality is, again, a very sad, very tragic death as far as Andy Gibb goes. And having Sagittarius on his 10th house cusp, he obviously, I believe he wanted to create a public image of being expansive and exuberant and optimistic, even in spite of all the tribulation he was going through. Having Gemini on the cusp of his 4th house indicates to me, or could we suggest, that there may have been a lot of extensive communication at the latter or end part of his life. There were a lot of people were likely talking about this. Gemini energy could be very voluble. Gemini is very loquacious, so even people that were more reticent or taciturn or whatever you want to call it, that the people that even weren't generally talkative, and as far as their general way of being goes, were probably much more loquacious at the time that he passed, that latter end part of your life. This was something that likely gained a lot of news at the time. And again, that's pretty much it I wanted to talk about as far as his his death goes. And another thing, though, is that he had one of the other rulers of his 8th house, Pluto, Scorpio on the cusp of the 8th house. One of the other rulers, Pluto, conjunct the moon, so it's another indicator that this death would be public, would likely be very public. And in Virgo, health related. And I wonder, being in Virgo, I wonder if there was some intestinal issues that wasn't talked about, that that played a role during, at least at the time of his death, even if it wasn't attributed to it, because Virgo can be associated with that, of course. And so anyway, Pete, and also too, you're talking about Scorpio in the 8th house cusp. I also had pondered Taurus rising ponderous energy. Could there have been something, with his bladder maybe, or something else Scorpio related going on that we weren't, maybe cognizant of? And again, you have all this, that Scorpio energy, 8th house, coupled with this Pisces energy and that for intercepted 1st house. I think it wouldn't surprise me if there are some things connected with this death that we're in about Andy Gibb that we may never know about. And it's just sad that somebody that had he was such a phenomenal talent at such a young age, and to let the drugs do this to him. And a message to people out there that, if anybody is watching this and you're a chronic drug user, or you're using alcohol or drugs frequently, you really reconsider it. I mean, my message I'm conveying probably won't do much for most people, but even if I could help one or two people with this message, it's still something positive I can do. Because obviously, when you're doing drugs, your health can dissipate, become depleted, and you really, and it's something that some people can be dominated by, and then they start losing focus on the more important things in their life, and their life could obviously come to an end at a very young age. There's no telling what Andy Gibb may have accomplished if he actually just lived a little bit or a lot longer. What could he have done? He had he had numerous hits right off the bat. Singles that were hits. I mean, he was phenomenal. He had could if he had survived and lived longer, could he have attained the success and notoriety that his brothers did at that level? He might not. It would have been very hard to surpass the Bee Gees in terms of their success that they attained in their career, but he might have been pretty close to them, I think. I think he would have been very close to what they actually could have done. And remember, the Bee Gees is a group of more than one person, and Andy Gibb was it's just one man show. So there you go. He could have really done something very spectacular with his career, and I think would have attained a lot more accolades and recognition and achievements. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.